What's the most fricked up thing ever been told to you in confidence? I was once friends with a girl who told me that in order to get her ex-boyfriend, with whom she had been having an affair, back, she had sent an email to his suicidal wife detailing their affair. Her intention was not just to break them up, but to have the wife kill herself. She eventually attempted it, and was found unconscious by her husband as he opened the front door. Thankfully she survived it all, but needless to say, it's why we aren't friends anymore. What the frick, man. One of my mates told me he killed someone a few weeks prior. Honestly didn't believe him. Thought he was just making crap up. Then I saw the newspaper article. A few months later he's in prison and I never saw him again. What? Why did he tell you? Be careful dating my brother. He'll make you do stuff if you refuse him. But he does it in the butt, so I am still a virgin. That is freaking horrible. When my brother and I were teens, he told me he wished he could die so he could be with his mother and so that he wouldn't be in pain every day and be a burden on father. He told me he knew just how much of his painkillers he needed to take, and he wouldn't feel anything, just slip away and never wake up. It scared the heck out of me. Father somehow found out and got him counseling and he's never talked about it again, but it was terrifying at the time. Glad your dad found out and your brother got help. I can't imagine how you had to have felt. I'm sorry you went through that. I have an old childhood friend who joined the rather notorious gang where I'm from. Got drunk one night after years apart. Told me as a prospect the worst thing he did was to put his girlfriend at the time on the block. He has hated the older gang members that made him do it and planned out how he is going to kill them down to the last detail. I have no idea whether he will do it or not, but he hates them like nothing I've seen. A former friend was getting a divorce. His wife got pregnant again. He did not want the baby. When he was watching the two children he would dote on the elder and be mean to the younger, feeding the young one very spicy food so that his mouth would burn and saying it was to get him to stop asking for food because he was a fatty. He would also neglect the child with full knowledge of what he was doing. I ripped the dad a new butthole and have never talked to him again. I did not have even close to enough information about this friend to contact anyone. During my first year in university a professor died of a heart attack. It was during midterms and he was consulting a student at the time. In grad school I met that student. He was a doctoral candidate working with the new graduate students. One night we were drinking at the campus pub and he told me he waited until the professor was dead before he called for help. In short, he just watched him die. A guy I was seeing for a while there was a bit on the odd side. He was very into politics. Not that there was anything wrong with that. One day we spoke about travel, and he confided in me the real reason he wanted to travel. He was a great fan of Vladimir Tepes, otherwise known as Vladimir the Impaler, the real Dracula, and wanted to carry on his name in modernism. He wanted to travel to Gaza and blow it up. He also, more importantly, wanted to know what it was like to kill a human being, so long as he doesn't necessarily get caught doing so. He detailed to me how he liked the idea of gutting someone and taking out their entrails as a trophy. He believed traveling to the Middle East, Africa, he would get away with it far more easier than here. Plus, there, he could avenge the East's war in the West. Another time, he confided in me that he wanted to start a military coup here in Australia. I no longer talk to him, but I can't say my fear has subsided. He was 50 shades of fricked up. Be me. High school sweetheart cheats, so I decide to rebound. I wasn't the brightest, obviously. We hooked up briefly for about a month, which was when I saw this side to him. Murder thousands of innocents, Vladimir worship, etc. I broke it off, and he was mad. Understandably, I moved overseas for a few months and we didn't speak. A while after I came back, I met a wonderful man and PG turned XXX and we were a pretty A-list banging couple. Impaler messaged me out of the blue some day to tell me he had my books at his. One was my beloved copy of Bridge to Terabithia, so I went to pick them up. No intentions of staying long. I asked how he was. He was gloomy, miserable, which was when he mentioned about the military coup he was planning. He was also watching a movie called Count of Monte Cristo. Now, for those who don't know this, Monte Cristo is a story about a man whom was jailed. When he was released, he found the woman he loved was with a new man. The movie soon turned dark. being about revenge. Impaler out of the blue pointed this fact out to me, so I said, right, well, time for me to bounce. He then began questioning my new boyfriend, asking why him, what does he have that I don't? There were other add-ons. Example, if I meet him, I will cut his head off. You two both should fear me. I will think of you when I'm off in war. That last one was a bit killer. The reason I hadn't left by this stage was because he had hit me, and I was on the floor clutching my books. He told me he was going to frick me, which was when I gained the strength to get the frick out of there. I reported him to the police, and I have no idea what he does with himself these days. There's your timeline, bro. My friend's dad told me he was cheating on his wife and he'd pay me to keep watch parked outside his house in case his wife came home early. I have no idea why he chose me. Why didn't he just use that money to pay for a sleazy motel room? My friend, girl, introduced me to her new boyfriend. They had been dating for about a month. I am pretty good friends with the girl. We've known each other a long time. Well, the three of us are hanging out, and the guy is pretty cool, or so I thought. Later in the night, she goes to the bathroom or to make a drink or something and he starts telling me about the girl he was with last night and shows a picture. I ask him why he was telling me this, and he says you seem like a cool guy and you know a guy's gotta do what a guy's gotta do. I honestly just stared for a minute, like, no way he is that dumb. Before my friend comes back I just tell him to get out. He gives a quizzical look, and I stand. Then he stands, because at this point I don't think his brain can comprehend what is happening. I just walk him to the door with a classic hand on the collar, open it and then guide him out. My friend comes back in and asks where he went, and then I sat her down and told her exactly what he told me while I hear him pounding on the door. She opens the door and slaps him. He starts pleading and telling her I am a liar, into her, etc. She slams the door and cries. Then we got drunk and ordered pizza. Not sure what happened to him later. She's got a new guy now and he is legitimately awesome. A+ friend. My dad used to work part-time at a warehouse in a low-income area while he was in school, and his co-workers liked to confide things with him for some reason. One of his co-workers would eat pickled jalapenos from the jar all day and then complain about how his wife yelled at him about it burning when he went down on her. Another one of his co-workers confided in him that he murdered someone several years back in Minnesota. To the first co-worker's wife, turnabout is fair play. I'd say a ghost pepper BJ is in order. An ex-boyfriend confided in me that he had over a terabyte of child pornography on an external hard drive, and he had to delete stuff all the time to make room for all the new stuff. I hope you called the cops on that disgusting frick. My friend once randomly said to me one lesson. You know, if you didn't have so many spots, were thinner and didn't have a lisp, then you'd probably have a boyfriend. Took months to recover from that. Friend. An old mate's wife told me one drunken night that she can't sleep with her husband unless he pretends he's a dog. Something about it being animalistic that she found kinky. Now you know they only do it doggy style. A plastic surgeon I shadowed was telling me about a patient that was murdered before a scheduled procedure, and that she was more upset over losing the money than her death. That they got drunk and hit someone with their car. This was at a party. Having pre-drank and drove there, I left an anonymous tip with the cops. Frick that. Thanks for doing that. My cousin was killed a few years ago by someone who was drunk and drove up on the sidewalk. They found the man that killed him because someone left an anonymous tip, and putting him in prison gave his parents peace of mind. I never promised you a bonus. My ex boss some years ago, after I wanted to collect the bonus he promised 1 year earlier. Always get those statements in writing. Always. A regular at the bar I used to work at drunkenly told me his ex-girlfriend, who he talked about often, fricked a German Shepherd more than once. A friend in middle school once told me that her little sister was only her half-sister, not her full sister. Her mother got drunk and screwed a guy at a party. Nobody but her mom, the girl, and I guess me know the truth. Chris Rock. A man's lie is like I was over at Jimmy's house. A woman's lie is like it's your baby. I occasionally go target shooting with an older gentleman who is an immigrant from a country that at one point back before the internet but during the times of VHS, had a reasonably oppressive government. He sort of views me as the son he never had. I'm over 25 years younger than him, and sometimes we grab beers after a day out. Over time, he told me that he was in his country's secret police and was involved in several extrajudicial executions. And by involved, I mean committed. I have seen photographic and physical proof that he was in a paramilitary organization that you have likely heard of, so the only thing that he can't prove are the stores themselves. I'm inclined to believe them based on the consistency and his general demeanor, and he's a very honest man that I consider to be a friend who has no reason to lie to me. I am not especially bothered by the stories, either, for a number of reasons that aren't particularly important. Still, they are certainly fricked up. At about 5 AM in a seedy bar a few years ago, a guy told me he had just got out of prison for murdering a fellow soldier. He said that the guy had been shot by the enemy, so he broke his neck to put him out of his misery. He said he would have gotten away with it, but they found the footage of his body cam and saw what he did. Literally none of this makes a single ounce of sense, and is probably complete bulls, but still pretty fricked considering how much he seemed to believe it himself. Guy whose ex had kept him in an abusive relationship as a sissy maid. Fair enough if it's consensual, but apparently this wasn't entirely. This nice, open-hearted and outgoing girl disclosed to me how she got pleasure from vivisecting rats and other small animals. The then girlfriend of a friend of mine once drunkenly told me that her ex-boyfriend was HIV positive. She hadn't thought it necessary to mention to her girlfriend. I certainly did. My ex-boyfriend told me he wanted a dog to frick him. Not him frick a dog to frick him. And he had even attempted it once. I still dated him for like 2 months after that. First time poster, long time reader. About 20 years ago one of my neighbors told me that she stopped taking her contraceptive pills so that she could get pregnant from her boyfriend. She thought this way he would have to stick around. They now have 3 kids and are miserable. Guess in some ways she got what she wanted. Karma's a real bee. That happened to my cousin. He got trapped in with having kids with her. She lied about being on the shot and got knocked up. My friend cheated on her boyfriend, who she's planning to move out of state with sometime soon, for free weed and LSD, repeatedly. Sometimes they forewent protection. My father telling me I should abort my child because I would kill him because I suffered from depression 3 years prior to getting pregnant. Guess who ended up suffering from postnatal depression because I was terrified I would hurt my child. I really don't understand why the heck he said that when I'm the kind of person who ends up crying whenever I see child abuse stories on the news. I went no contact with my father recently because of this crap. Don't contact your father. A father is a man who guides and teaches their children. Sounds like he wanted to cause drama. Stay away from that. I guarantee you're a wonderful mother, because you had the experience of a crappy parent and would never want your baby to be put through that. My friend in high school was addicted to H at 16. Another friend got sent to one of those abusive reform schools where they lock you in a room for days at a time. Some chick I had been hoping to talk to for a while at a party told me she fricked her stepbrother. Instant limp dong syndrome occurred. My aunt and uncle have been divorced for almost a decade, and were having some serious marital troubles basically from the time they were married until then. They also had some serious financial trouble right before they divorced. No surprise, money is often the catalyst for a lot of breakups. Well, last month on vacation with the family, they explained that it was actually all very carefully calculated. They had gotten a divorce so they could hide funds in my aunt's name, as my uncle was being sued and investigated for fraud. They had made some extra money throughout the years by flipping houses, and were being sued and investigated for basically ignoring code when redoing some of the houses, lying to tenants about the state of the properties they were renting. They had basically purposefully faked marital problems so that if they ever were in danger of being sued and investigated they could believably get a divorce, move money into my aunt's name, and feign her ignorance so that my uncle could declare bankruptcy and avoid paying serious fines damages. They just recently got married again, having decided that enough time had passed that her money wouldn't be in danger if they got back together. Also apparently they say they've learned their lesson, but still, Couldn't believe how concerted and specific their efforts were, all in an attempt to make a few extra bucks on the shady side. During my parents' divorce, my mom told me that my dad used to shake me when I was a baby. When I confronted my father about it, he said, "You wouldn't stop crying." A decade ago, a friend, who's a well-known Silicon Valley executive, decided he wanted to spend a couple of months in NYC. He had a wonderful 2-year-old dog who doted on him. When he texted me from New York, I asked how his dog was doing. He admitted he had dropped her off at the pound on his way out of town. One of my friends told me if his house was on fire and he could only choose one, he'd save his girlfriend instead of his baby 2-year-old son. I got lucky. After killing a girl in a car accident when he had been drinking, he pleaded guilty to bodily harm with a motor vehicle, and 4 hours after he was changed, the girl died from the injuries. On a works night out, me and 2 girls were getting a taxi up to the next bar. One of them I'm good friends with, the other, we started at the same time, but I was never really friends with. She is in a total state, drank too much, is over emotional. She tells us she's a terrible person because she's had 6 abortions. I mean, I'm pro-choice, but Jesus. Me and the other girl look at one another like, why the frick is she telling us this? Give some light reassuring that she's not terrible, then avoid her for the rest of the night. Overshare. One night I was out drinking with a couple really good friends. We'll say Jack and Hank. Hank used to be really reckless, between drinking and getting high all the time back in the day. Haven't seen him lately because he moved away. Anyway, I left early and the 2 of them eventually drove home. We all used to live really close to each other, so the 2 of them went down the same road. Jack in front of Hank. Hank was super freaked up, ended up driving off the road and flipping his car, completely wrecked, but he wasn't hurt. It wasn't until way later after Hank moved away that Jack told me he actually saw it happen in his mirror. Freaked out and kept driving because he didn't want to get involved and possibly arrested as well. So I was in the car, and the guy driving just goes, "When I was in the Virgin Islands 30 years old, I fricked a 14-year-old. Then he said, you know, I've come to realize I'm Jesus Christ and I can do whatever the frick I want." I hit him with a hatchet. I was told by my Scottish physics teacher and ex-military that Jerry Adams, leader of Sinn Féin, is an undercover agent for the British government. When I was a kid, my uncle died of a diabetic coma. He was in his 20s. A few months ago I found out that he had been with neighbors drinking extremely heavily and they all knew how sick he was. No one bothered to inform my grandparents to watch out for him and he died that night. If someone had just said something, he might have had a chance. Worst part is, the neighbor thinks he did it on purpose and went out on his own terms. No, a shat. He was a stupid kid who didn't take care of himself and could have used a real friend to speak up and watch out for him. I have to leave this here because I can never tell anyone in my family. It would destroy them all over again. I just wish I could have actually gotten to know my uncle. I was so young, I only have a few memories of him. I got in a casual chat with a stranger at school. He brought up that he distributed child pee and was making a lot of money from it. Bro, when I ask you what you do in your free time, I expect something like swimming, piano, or video games. My friend, Lisa, was hanging out with her friend Milhouse. He told her, after a while, that he had OD on pills before coming over because he wanted to die with a friend. She called 911 and he didn't die. They were teenagers when this happened and stayed friends until adulthood. My ex wanted to frick his mom. For real. He was into a lot of messed up stuff. Started off tame, then over time told me more. A former good friend of mine who was married for about 5 years, with children, confessed to having a second family in a nearby state whom he's been with the mother of for 16 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.